everybody, I'm Tabitha and I've read 5 more books. These books you're going to see the reviews for are actually the last 4 I finished in June and the first one in the month of July, because that's just the way this works sometimes. If you are looking for a description of how I rate books on this channel, you'll find that at the end of the video. You can check the timestamps and jump right to it. Speaking of timestamps, in the description you'll also notice I gave you timestamps for each of the books I'm about to review in case you want to jump around. With that being said, let's get to the first review. The next book I read in the month of June was Side Trip by Kerry Lonsdale. This is an adult age category romance. It's coming to you in July of 2020 by Lake Union Publishing. It is 334 pages, and I do want to say a quick thank you to NetGalley and Lake Union Publishing for my electronic advanced reader copy. Your synopsis. With her deceased sister's Route 66 bucket list in hand, Joy Evers will set out on a cross-country trip to meet her fiancé in New York, crossing off items along the way. Dylan Westfield is trying to fulfill his own sort of deal, traveling across the country and playing gigs with his guitar. But when his car breaks down, they'll make a new deal. She'll drive him to New York, and he'll pay for gas. What happens on the road stays on the road, right? So what didn't I like about this book? Well, the first thing, and this is a personal problem for me, and it comes up a lot of time in romance, and you might feel differently, is this book puts cheating center stage. The entire undertone of the story involves Joy being engaged to someone else from the start of the book. It bothered me throughout the entire story, and if you're sensitive to this, it's also going to bother you. It was handled as well as can be handled when you're dealing with this kind of thing in a book. Second thing I can say I didn't like about this one, and it's such an oddly specific small thing to mention, but when I started this channel, I agreed to be honest, even if it was oddly specific. So chances are this won't bother you. But I hated the way Flagstaff was depicted in this story. I used to live in Flagstaff. It is one of my absolute favorite towns. I adore it. We literally go there for fun. So to see Flagstaff used as sort of a throwaway, could be any other city on Route 66 kind of thing, made me cringe hard. It seriously made me lose respect for this book, and since they go to Flagstaff early on, that was a problem. I would have preferred to see it either handled correctly or never named and just used as a throwaway town, like the rest of them. So what did I like about this book? Well, the first thing I can say I liked, and this is a big one, is that the whole bucket list angle works, in my opinion. It piques my interest right away. It kept me in the story. I love the idea of traveling across the country and checking off sort of a bucket list of items as you go, but it added to the mystery and the excitement of the story to know that this wasn't even Joy's list. The second thing I can say I liked about this one is the depiction of grief is well done. This book ultimately deals with 2 things. 1, the love story, which I'll get to in a second, and 2, Joy's grief. The grief is the first thing that smacks you in this book, and it hits harder than the romance does in a big way. Joy is making decisions out of grief throughout this entire book. I have never seen a book that makes that so obvious before. It was a great lesson in letting go of grief and dealing with it. The third thing I can say about this book that I liked, which I just kind of alluded to, is the romance. It does draw you in. They're a good pair, they have chemistry right away, and I think it's rather obvious. The last thing I can say I liked about this one is the ending. It is not by any means the traditional way of ending a book. It will be controversial when this hits the shelves in July, but I like it. The author here took a big, big risk, and in my opinion, it pays off. Who do I think should read this one? If you're a reader who's looking for books about grief or dealing with grief, perhaps from a non-example, I think you'll like the way this one handles that. If you are someone who likes a non-traditional ending or wants to see what I think the controversy will be about, check this one out. I also think this will help readers who like emotion in their stories because it packs some serious punches, but ultimately readers who like warm, fuzzy feelings from their love stories. My rating? I gave this one 4 stars. It's going to appeal to romance readers. I do think contemporary readers will get a little bit of enjoyment out of it, but you definitely have to like both romance and contemporary. Otherwise, you're not going to love it. It is worth the read. It is a good book. So I'm going 4 stars for Side Trip by Kerry Lonsdale. This next book was recommended based on my most recent 5-star read before the month started. The next book I read in the month of June was Shackled by Tom Leveen. This one is a young adult age category mystery thriller. It was published in 2015 by Simon Pulse, and it is 224 pages. This book was actually recommended to me based on my 5-star read of A Little Insurrection Now and Then, also by Tom Leveen. Your synopsis. One girl's abduction leaves her best friend emotionally paralyzed by fear until a chance encounter points her toward a new clue and terrifying danger. So what didn't I like about this one? The big one is that I wanted more. This one has questions that are never answered by the book, and in my opinion, they're rather big questions. I do honestly believe that they couldn't have been answered in this book. Anything Tom tried to do for this would have felt too convenient or forced, and it would have ruined the story we were trying to tell. But I wouldn't say no to a sequel with some of those answers. The second thing I can say I didn't particularly like about this one is the romantic subplot wasn't really needed. Of course, I tend to think that a lot. If you love romance and you love romance arcs, you're going to feel differently. This arc was well written, I just didn't think it was needed. The third thing I can say, and this is more of a content warning, is this one is a young adult book that features young adults who never use adult support. This is a common issue with YA, and I know we go back and forth arguing about this, and you may already have an opinion about it, so consider this a warning. There are spots in this book where teenagers got in some serious trouble and could have reached out to adults to help get support and chose not to. So if that bothers you in young adult, consider yourself warned. What did I like about this book? Penelope. Right from the start, you are dropped into her head and you feel exactly what she is feeling. And considering you start on page 1 with Penelope in the middle of a panic attack, it is intense. I felt myself wanting to breathe for her, or with her, maybe. Throughout the book, she is incredibly well written and she gives you a great glimpse into panic attacks. Second thing I liked about this one is David. He's a genuinely good guy and I liked him right away. He's cautious and guarded, but he's also helping in any way that he can, and he just felt realistic and relatable in a great, great way. The third thing I can say I liked about this story is that it has a very thrilling second half. The book definitely reminds you that you're dealing with a mystery thriller with that solid ending. It hit a spot in the book where there was just no way I was going to be able to put it down. I was going to have to keep reading until I was done. And it gives you that feeling of like goosebumps and anticipation that thrillers are named for. Who do I think should read this one? If you're a reader who likes thrills, but you don't necessarily like horror and you don't like being immersed in gruesome horror of a story, you're going to like this one. If you're a reader who wants a character with a realistic depiction of a panic attack, I think you're going to like this one. My rating? I gave this one 4 stars. I think this one is going to appeal to contemporary fans who like mystery thrillers or who want to try mystery thrillers. So I went 4 stars for Shackled by Tom Leveen. The next book I read in the month of June was You May Now Kill the Bride by R.L. Stine. This is a 2018 publication by Harper Teen. It is a young adult age category horror novel, and it is 352 pages. Your synopsis. 2 fear family weddings decades apart, each with an ancient curse that will mean the bride may not see her wedding day. Return to Fear Street and learn more about the curse that haunts this famous family. So what didn't I like about this one? The first one is that this book suffers from too much detail and too much telling. Basically, the story seems to give you a ton of small details which draw you away from the major plot and give you mundane information that you really just don't need. I wanted more action and I wanted it faster. And actually, if I'm thinking about remembering Fear Street books when I was a kid and the first time these came around, I remember having the same opinion about those. So if you love the original Fear Street, you may not feel the same way. Second thing I can say I didn't particularly like about this one is it's definitely horror light, which shouldn't really be a negative because it's written for young adults, and how much horror do you really want your young adults to have, I guess. Plus, again, I kind of knew that going in. Growing up, Fear Street was always a little scarier than Goosebumps, but I never felt like it was as scary as like Christopher Pike, maybe. I would put this one on the same level as the original Fear Street in terms of horror. It's fine. It's just intended to be an introduction to horror. And I think die-hard horror fans or people who read adult horror are not going to be as impressed. Third thing I can say I didn't like about this one is it suffers from a predictable ending. I wanted more surprises, which isn't surprising because I always say that. If I can predict your ending, I'm not going to love it. So what did I like about this one? Well, the first one is magic. I was pleasantly surprised to find that magic featured in this one. I want more of that because now I'm invested in the whole magic angle. The second thing I can say I liked about this one is Fear Street. I mean, come on, it's nostalgic for me big time. Plus, I don't remember many of the details of the books from the Fear Street books when I was a teen. And even if I remember them, I didn't think they involved the actual Fear family the street was named for. So I'm really interested in how this plays out in the new revised trilogy. And I'm hoping that there's more like hints and details to how this fits into the stories we remember. I just thought that part was really cool. The last thing I can say I liked is that this book definitely brings tension in a big way. It does ups the stakes for your main characters. It makes you feel that anticipation almost of waiting for something big to sort of happen. It keeps you interested, and it definitely means you're going to read it quickly. Who do I think should read this one? It's for like a whole new generation of horror fans, right? Who are interested and eager to learn about horror, but you want them to take a baby step into horror first, dip their little toe in. That's exactly who this is for. So Fear Street is classic teen horror. It's better than most scary movies. I mean, just dive in and enjoy the scare. My rating? I gave this one 3 stars. It does fall to the niche of teenage horror starters, but it definitely appeals to the people it was written for. So 3 stars for You May Now Kill the Bride, Return to Fear Street by R.L. Stine. The next book I read in the month of June, which I think was actually the 14th and the final book for the month of June, although it's only the 4th for this video, is 1984 by George Orwell. This is an adult age category science fiction novel. It was originally published in 1949 by Secker and Warburg. My edition that I was reading is a Signet classic from 1961. And this book, in the form I had it in, was 328 pages. Your synopsis. 1984 is a haunting dystopia that follows Winston Smith, a man who rewrites history to satisfy the party in Oceania. With each lie he pens, Winston grows to hate the party and their persecution of thought crimes. But Big Brother is always watching. So what didn't I like about this one? Look, this book has been around a long time. Like I said, it was published in 1949. And like most of you, I've read pieces of it over the years, but I had never read the entire thing cover to cover. So the first thing I can tell you if you've never read it is that this is not a feel-good book. That's not to say that it should be. It's the original dystopia. It's just a warning. If you think this is going to be a story that wraps up with a good ending that gives you hope and makes you feel good, you're going to hate this book. That's not what it's about. So consider that a content warning. The second thing I can say I maybe didn't like about this book is that it does lack character development. There's an obvious reason for that because we're talking about citizens who have their humanity stripped away from them and are just part of the party. They have no individual identity, but it's jarring when what you read is character-driven fiction and you're used to that development. It's definitely missing from this one and you notice it right away. So what did I like about this book? The most important thing about this book is its message. It's a warning. It takes place in a society that is literally erasing humanity of their citizens, and they don't even know it. Citizens are actively taking part in their own erasure. It's just mind-blowing. The book itself is ultimately a warning if you care enough to look for the message, and that's the reason why it's so important. That's the reason why it has survived all these years, and it's the main reason why I loved it. The second thing I can say I liked about this one is it does have political commentary that I don't normally love. But this one smacks you in the face with important points. I loved the entire discussion about higher, middle, and lower. I loved the conclusions that they reached. I hated that they were spouted as perfectly logical. It scared me and it shocked me, and the entire argument about power left me literally speechless. I had to close the book for a minute. This book has some insanely powerful messages. Who do I think should read this one? If you haven't read 1984, you probably should. It is the strongest example of why people need to push back against totalitarian regimes and speak or think for themselves. It is a shockingly dark picture of what society can become if humanity becomes complacent. With that being said, my rating, I gave this one 5 stars. It's hard to rate it because 5 stars for me normally means everyone will love it, and I do not think everyone will love 1984. But that doesn't negate the fact that everyone should read it in their lifetime. It's hard, but it's also important. So 5 stars for 1984 by George Orwell. All right, watchers, you just heard me give this book 5 stars. That means if you have a book that you think is similar to this book, please make sure you drop the name of the book and the author down below in the comments, because I'll be choosing books based on this one for next month's TBR. The first book I read in July and the last and 5th book for this video is What Was Mine by Helen, Klein, Ross. This is an adult age category contemporary novel. It was published in 2016 by Gallery Books, and it is 328 pages. Your synopsis. Lucy Wakefield is an ordinary woman who does something unimaginable in the heat of the moment. She takes an infant from a shopping cart and out of the store. It's a secret she manages to keep for 2 decades while she raises the child as her own, until the day when it all comes crashing down. So what didn't I like about this book? Some of the points of view in this book don't work. This is a multi-POV novel, which I think is perfectly fine. I normally don't have a problem with that. But when we're dealing with so many different points of view, it's possible that you'll have some that can be cut without losing anything. I'm specifically thinking of a few characters who maybe only had 1 or 2 chapters. I felt myself thinking we didn't need their viewpoint, and I wish they hadn't been in there. Second thing I can say I didn't like about this one is the ending. When you're dealing with something this controversial, I think I knew we weren't going to have an ending that was going to work for everyone, right? That's impossible. This is a really controversial subject, so there's no way everyone's going to like this ending. But in my opinion, this ending was a bad choice. Maybe that's just me. I'd be interested to know what you think if you've read this book, but I was disappointed in the ending. The third thing I can say I didn't like about this one, and I wasn't expecting this, is it lacked emotion. With a topic like this, I expected this book to just deliver on the emotional impact. I mean, we're talking about a kidnapping. The emotional impact here should be a highlight of this book, and instead, to me, it felt flat. I felt like we had an opportunity here to feel with the characters, and instead you were just telling me what they were feeling. That was really disappointing. Too much of this book almost felt like a news article. Too factual, no life. So what did I like about this book? The first thing I liked, and this is a big one, is I like books that deal with controversial topics. I like when authors take something you already have a strong opinion about, like kidnapping, and spin it in such a way that you actually have to start thinking critically about it. Of course, by no means are you going to necessarily come away from this one with a different opinion about a controversial topic, but it's interesting to be forced to rethink all the angles of something you thought you felt so strongly about. I just love when authors do that. Second thing I liked about this one is that there are insightful reactions for sure. Like this one will definitely make you yell at characters for decisions they make or for thoughts they have or for things they do. Like you definitely get a reaction out of yourself for things that non-real characters are doing on the page. And I kind of like that. The author was playing around with extreme character types in this one, and I think she succeeded. It worked for the story. The third thing I can say I liked about this one is there are ethical questions and issues, which you know I love in my books. Ultimately, this one explores morality and it explores ethical questions about people, crime, and punishment. I love that angle, and I love this book for that. Who do I think should read this one? If, like me, you are a fan of books that explore morality issues and ethical questions, this is a don't miss book. I also think if you're a contemporary fan who wants a controversial family-style drama, you're going to like this one. My rating, I gave this one 3 stars. It's falling to that niche of people who like contemporary but who like morality questions as well. I think you have to be both to like this one, but if that's you, definitely give this one a shot. So 3 stars for What Was Mine by Helen, Klein, Ross. Okay, that is it for me and the last 4 books, plus the first book that I read in June and July. Thank you for being here. If you are an author or a publisher who had a part in bringing a book to life that you want me to review right here on this channel, there is a link down in the description you can follow to send me information about that book. I should warn you the waiting list is getting a little long, but please let me know if you have an audiobook available. That list is a lot shorter. Drop a comment to let me know you're still here. Hit subscribe and tap that little bell so you know when I'm back. Keep plotting the path to your own dreams, and I will see you next time. Bye! watchers of this channel will already know this, but I do book reviews every time I've read 5 books. You should know that I don't read just one specific age category or genre. I'm actually a reader of pretty much anything. So I will make sure to tell you what age category, what genre it is, and more importantly, what kind of readers I think will love the book that I'm reviewing. I do use a 5-star rating system to review all my books, so I'd like to take a quick second to tell you about that system. 5-star ratings are reserved for books that I absolutely love, that I think transcend genre. In other words, you might love this one even if you don't normally read the genre it's written in. 4-star books, on the other hand, are books that I absolutely love and think are great books, but they're more specific to the genre they are written for. 3-star ratings are for books that I think are good books, but they have a really niche audience. You might not love this one, even if you normally read this genre. 2-star ratings are the ratings I reserve for books that I think are problematic. I do try to explain some of the problems in the what I didn't love section so that you know if it's the kind of thing that would really bother you or not. 1-star rating, on the other hand, are reserved for books that I honestly didn't enjoy and can't recommend. They're just not for me.